Hey guys, welcome to the NRL Round 11 betting trend report and preview for the upcoming round. In this video, we go through all the 8 upcoming games, go through what the odds are and what the odds were last time these two sides met, who's been covering their recent matchups, have those games been going over or under the total, what the odds and lines were for those games, any trends, and also what I'm leaning to betting on each of these matchups. But before we get into this week's games, quickly look back at last round and what happened. So of the 8 games, 4 went over, 4 went under, exactly the same as round 9. So that's a couple of weeks in a row where we've seen that pattern. If we look overall in the season, still a slight lean to the under. 2 more games going under than going over. Day matches, 17 of the 26 have gone under. Night games going over the total. Then from an ATS perspective, the home teams covered 4 games and the away sides covered 4 games. Home sides still have the winning record against the spread overall in the season, and underdogs have the winning record overall on the season. Of the 8 games, the home teams won 5 of them. Favorites this weekend covered 5 of the 8 games. So that brings this number slightly back closer, but overall, as the season progresses, that number is going to close. And the way you kind of play this is looking at sides who are really underperforming or overperforming in situations, and their lines are going to be inflated. So, for example, the Melbourne Storm 1-6 as a favorite, the Warriors 1-7 as a favorite. What you're going to see is those sides, that number that they're going to get given is going to get less and less. So, for example, in, say, Melbourne Storm playing like Newcastle, the Storm, you would expect them to be -8.5. That number is going to be down to -6.5 or even -5.5 to slowly even up that difference. But it does have to coincide with their overall record. So the Storm Warriors are kind of in that situation. The Rabbitohs still a side that have yet to cover the spread at all this season. They face the Cowboys this weekend, a side they have a really, really good record against. We'll get to that in a second. The underdogs who covered last week. The Dolphins covered against the Seagulls, winning that game outright 30-24. The Sharks covered against the Storm. This game was almost a pick 'em before Nico Hines was ruled out. Then the Storm went into 6.5, 7.5 point favorites, but the Sharks won and covered. And then last game of the round, the Titans beat the Cowboys. Thankfully, all those 3 teams are backed as underdogs, so we were able to hit all 3 of those. And last weekend was a really, really good round in the NRL. Now, looking ahead to this weekend, all games being played at Suncorp Stadium. So I went back through the average total for games at Suncorp is 44.3. That's across the 2023 and 2024 seasons so far. Then of the 35 games being played in that time, 18 went over, 17 went under. So no real major trend. A lot of people kind of look at Suncorp and see it as an over venue, but that definitely hasn't been the case. It's virtually 50%. And the average score for games at Suncorp has been 43.5 points. The first game, so Friday night is the first game this weekend. It's a doubleheader. Firstly, Canberra taking on Canterbury Bulldogs. The Bulldogs, small favorites here, -2.5. The Bulldogs have covered 4 of the past 5 against the Raiders. The home team has covered 8 of the past 10. So that doesn't really apply in this situation. When they met last season in this game, Canberra won 34 points to 30. This is a really, really interesting game. Canberra's coming off the bye, but I just don't know if defensively they're going to be good enough to win this game. Bulldogs have been a real surprise packet this year. Compared to previous seasons, their defense has dramatically improved. That'll largely be thanks to Cameron Ciraldo being coach. But that's been the main reason for their improved performances this year. So this is a real winnable game for them. I'm not super keen on backing the Bulldogs as a favorite. They're not like a team where you can be confident laying points about them. From a total perspective on this game, at 42.5, I feel like that number is slightly high. Their past 2 matchups have really racked up points though, so I'm definitely keeping that in mind. But I wouldn't be surprised coming off the bye if the Raiders team total goes under here, especially against this Bulldogs defense, who really stood up last week against the Panthers. The Bulldogs only conceding 16 points last week against the Panthers, who are a top three side in line breaks and tackle breaks, so a team that generate plenty of opportunities. So I think the Raiders team total towards the under is how I'm looking at that game. Seagulls versus the Broncos, away game for the Broncos. They're 11.5-point favorites. They've covered 4 of the past 5 and 7 of the past 9 against Manly, so they do have a really, really good record. The last 3 games have all been blowouts. The closest of those was the last match where Brisbane won 32 points to 6. That was this match last year. Brisbane were 10.5-point favorites for that game. They're minus 11.5 here. It's a pretty big spread, but Broncos should win this game and win it fairly comfortably. They match up better than the Seagulls in almost every category, both in attack and defense. That's worth looking at. So I like the Broncos to get it done. I'm definitely interested in the over for this game as well. Both sides very strong attacking. Broncos the number 4, Seagulls number 5 attacking side, and both sides bottom half of the league defensively. So 47.5 total is pretty high, but this is the kind of showcase game of the round with Broncos playing. So we can definitely expect a high scoring game. And that's what we've seen in the past 3. And I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout as we've seen in the past 3 matchups. I'm definitely more interested in the over. Titans versus Knights. Newcastle minus 2.5 and a total of 45.5. The home team has been really good in this matchup. They've won the past 5. And the Knights have won and covered 3 of the past 4 against Gold Coast. Gold Coast has really hit form since they got that win against New Zealand a few weeks ago. They've pushed the Melbourne Storm to 2 points and then came out and had a 20-point lead against the Cowboys. They only won by 2 in the end, but were good enough to win the game overall. So their past 3 weeks has been a lot better than their opening 7 weeks of the season. This is a good test against the Knights for a team who are very, very good defensively and good at grinding out games. That's where the real mismatch between these two sides are. They're very even in attack, but defensively, Newcastle are a lot better. But these are overall season averages I'm talking about here. And the Titans' form over the past 3 weeks hasn't really caught up to how bad they were early on in the season, constantly getting blown out. And so I don't think there's really that much between these two sides. Definitely agree the Knights should be favored, but I think at minus 2.5, that line is about right. Total of 45.5. I do think this number is slightly high, but I do think it's also going to be a high scoring game. So not 100% sure how I want to play this game. Between these two sides, 7 of the past 10 head-to-head have gone over the total points line. It is down on their past 2 meetings, which are 55.5 and 47.5. So down to 45.5 here. Of those past 10, easily 9 of them could have gone over. There was 2 in there that went under, that only went under by, I think, 1.5 and 2.5 points. That's where the tricky part is about this game, because you've got the Titans and Knights, their historical games head-to-head have been really, really high scoring, but how they've been performing this season has been the exact opposite of that. So you got 2 different factors at play here. I lean slightly towards how they're performing this season. But a lower total down to the 43.5 or even 42.5, I'd definitely play the over. And that would be the way I'm looking at that game. Another matchup that has a history of high scoring games is the Sharks or Roosters. 4 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone over. The past 2 are the ones that have gone under during that time. The Roosters have a really good record in this matchup, winning 8 of the past 9 against the Sharks. However, the Sharks have covered 3 of the past 4. Roosters at minus 4.5 for this game. Feel like that line is slightly high. These are the top 2 attacking sides in the league. Roosters averaging the most points a game, Sharks averaging next best. But both sides are top 4 defenses as well. So I'm not really keen on the total in this game, but I do like the Sharks at the plus 4.5. They're clearly the better defensive side, and also their numbers in attack aren't all that far off the Roosters. Like, it's very, very close in a lot of categories between the two. So 4.5 line, I feel like that's mainly due to the Roosters' record against them. But they were only 1.5-point favorites last time. And this is a real motivation game for the Sharks. The Roosters were the side who knocked them out of the finals last season, winning by 1 point. So a game where the Sharks should definitely get up for. Only concern with Cronulla here, it's back-to-back road games. Last week they were down in Melbourne playing the Storm on the road. Now they got to travel up to Brisbane. So not an ideal situation, but I definitely lean towards them with the +4.5. Rabbitohs versus Cowboys. This is like a pretty ugly game. Rabbitohs, as I mentioned, still yet to cover. They're 8.5-point underdogs here. They have won 7 of the past 8 versus Cowboys. The last meeting, though, the Cowboys did win by 25 points. As 6.5-point underdogs, $2.75 on the money line. Personally, I have no real interest in betting on this game. These were the two sides that I was wanting to fade this season, especially the Rabbitohs, to miss the top 8. Probably should have taken them to get the wooden spoon, as considering they were a team that were predicted to finish top 4. There were big odds available for that, but just stuck with them to miss the finals. Cowboys, the other side, I wanted to fade as well. But what we're seeing this year, Cowboys should be winning this game, but don't want to take -8.5 about them. And a 50.5-point total. We know these two sides can't defend at all, and that makes it very risky taking the under. Warriors versus Panthers. Penrith -9.5. They've won the past 8 against the Warriors, covered 4 of the past 5. Saw a couple of really big spreads back in 2022. Penrith -28.5 and -32.5. They covered both of those. When they met in the finals last season, Penrith were 18.5-point favorites. So this line's definitely come down. Penrith should win this game and win it fairly comfortably. I definitely don't mind the -9.5 here. Warriors are really struggling. They've been playing bad teams and losing over the past month, and now they got to face the best side in the competition. Definitely interested in that -9.5. The total at 41.5. 7 of the past 8 between these two sides have gone under the total. When they met here last season, it was 18 points to 6. The Warriors really do have a history of struggling to score against Penrith. 6 points in each of the last 2, 12, 6, 16 in the past 5 games. Those reasons, I think Warriors are going to struggle to score. Penrith should run out winners of this game and likely will be taking the -9.5 about the number 1 defensive side in the league. Storm versus the Eels. Storm have been playing really well this season. They've dropped a couple of games, but majority of the games have been decided by small margins. So to lay 9.5 points here is a pretty big ask. I'd be preferring like a 1 to 12 margin about the Storm here, as opposed to asking them to cover and win by 10 or more. The Eels have lost the past 2 against Melbourne. However, they did win the 3 games prior, and they did cover the 6 games prior to these last 2, both played last season. So they are a team that do show up against the better sides, as I've spoken about in previous videos. Also, 10 of the past 14 head-to-head have gone under. At 45.5, I feel like that number is slightly high. I have it. My total for this game is 43. So I feel like it is a couple of points too high, and definitely am interested in the under. I'll be monitoring final teams for this game, depending if I want to play the under, but leaning towards Storm 1 to 12 or the under 45.5. And then the final game of the round, Tigers versus the Redcliffe Dolphins. Redcliffe -8.5, total at 45.5. I like Redcliffe to win this game and cover the -8.5. They were a 6.5-point favorite earlier this season at this venue and won 26 to 16. So won by 10 points there. We get a slightly higher line, but Redcliffe are playing even better as the weeks go on. And I think they can get the win here, especially with this game being played in Brisbane once again. There's a real big difference between the attacking stats in these two sides. The Tigers are the worst attacking side in the league. Redcliffe are the number 3 rated attacking side. So as long as their defense holds up, which it should, they're pretty much average in the league for defense, should hold up against this Tigers attack, then Redcliffe can get it done. It's probably not it's still quite a lot of points, -8.5, and definitely will look at potentially first half bets as well. To try to take a slightly lower line or a halftime, full-time double, those kind of things. Trying to play around, find a better opportunity than such a big line, but definitely like the Dolphins to win. So I'll quickly recap all the games. Raiders versus Bulldogs, not a game to be super excited about. Leaning towards the Raiders team total going under. I think Broncos cover against the Seagulls, but more so leaning towards a high-scoring game, and would prefer a slightly lower total than 47.5. Titans versus Knights. Nothing super pushing me either way in this game. Definitely will consider an either side 1 to 10 though. The more I look at that game, Sharks versus Roosters, like the Sharks +4.5. Staying out of the Rabbitohs Cowboys, like Penrith -9.5 against the Warriors. Like the Storm 1 to 12 and the under 45.5 in the Storm Eels game, and then the Dolphins to cover -8.5. But we'll look for a better betting opportunity there for the Dolphins. So that's how I'm looking at playing the round this weekend. I'll post videos later in the week. Apologies, couldn't get videos out for last weekend. Just super busy with everyone now using the bet finders, using these tools to find their bets, using these tools to find their bets on the NRL, also on the AFL and other sports. So making sure everyone's using them correctly when breaking down games and analyzing and determining what bets they can make. Because the best thing you can do as a bettor is go through the games, pick and choose where you want to bet because you found an angle and you found an edge. It's not about just, there's a game on, all right, I need to find a bet in that game. You analyze all the games and then go, which ones do I want to bet into? Which one do I think like the line's not accurate? One team should be favorite and they're not. And that was the situation for a few games last weekend. Like I really thought the Dolphins should be favorite against the Seagulls. I really thought the Titans were a great chance as an underdog against the Cowboys. And then also, I like the Sharks to beat the Storm. Got the worst of the line in that game with Nico Hines then being ruled out. So could have got double the odds there about that matchup, but unfortunately didn't. But still able to get the win with Sharks winning outright. But the key is using the statistics, using the tools to go through not only for matchups, but also going through try scorer trends, seeing which players have been scoring, also the tries by position for each side, like where a team's scoring their tries are, they letting in tries through the right winger. So for example, here we have, for example, we will look at tries conceded by the opponent and their position. The Seagulls have let in 10 tries to the opponent's left winger and only 6 tries to the right winger. Then, for example, the Rabbitohs conceded 9 tries to the half. So if we've got a halfback that is capable of scoring tries and takes the line on, then it could be a good opportunity for them against the Rabbitohs and so on and so forth. So it's about using this information to make the right betting decisions. And then you combine that with the staking. So level staking all your bets. You can make money betting on the NRL and any sport you want to bet on when you follow these strategies. So definitely check out the bet finders if you want to help level up your betting on sports, and definitely keep an eye out for the other videos coming out later this week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything.